Hi everyone, I'm Airier, and today we're going to be checking out Sven Vanderplank's BattleTech lore and history and introduction to the Inner Sphere, part of the MechWarrior lore. Now, I know Sven has done a lot of lore work, and I'm just jumping into the deep end here at the very first video in the playlist he's put up, just seeing how much we're getting into. Honestly, I was thinking about skipping the introduction, but you know what? I'm used to BattleTech from Tech's point of view, and I love Tech's work. Tech's, everyone who works with him, Mike the editor, they do great work, but they do it in character. There is a bias there that he puts in, and honestly, it's funny as hell, and it's one of the reasons his videos are amazing. That said, I've heard Sven has a different take, and I don't know if that means he has a different bias that maybe likes different factions more, or if he tries to go reporting on this. I don't know, so I just want to get a taste of what we're getting into here. What does that mean? It means there's a link below to the original video. I don't know what I'm getting into other than it's BattleTech, and we're going into some of the deep history. As in, things that barely have history, and this guy's somehow managed to find shit. So, yeah, let's find out what happens. You guys know the deal. Link below, original video. Hit it up. And, yeah, let's get started.
This is the Inner Sphere. Thousands of planets colonized and ruled by powerful interstellar nations. A millennium of spaceflight has taken humanity to distant stars, but the 31st century is a time of technological regression. For the past 250 years, the great houses have been locked in a struggle known as the Succession Wars. Long gone are the heady ideals of the Star League, and now mankind lives in the ruins of its former glory.
Yeah, ideals. It's funny because, you know, the more you find out, the more you realize that was all smoke and mirrors. Very, very rich smoke and mirrors.
But who are the major players in ruling nobles?
Also, I'm kind of wondering what this map is. Is it individual divisions of control within the overarching 4 or 5 main factions? Yeah, I nearly almost didn't count Lao as a faction. It's a habit. They're just kind of a beat stick, honestly.
Houses of this future, and how did this state of affairs come to be? At one time,
a lot of it was just Comstar fucking around.
As members of the Star League. This golden epoch lasted 200 years and put a stop to the near constant state of war that preceded it.
Technically, yes. So apparently, he's jumping in more into the overall, this is what you'll know at an intro level. Which, admittedly, I probably should have watched before Tech's. Yeah, in hindsight, I realized I probably should have done this, then go into Tech's. Because Tech's just drops you right into this is why it's cool. Where this is, here's what you need to know. Okay, that makes a little more sense.
But decay and betrayal brought it
also,
to a
love the art. I know
end.
it's from the games.
Long repressed hostilities and resentments flared up, and soon the 5 great houses turned on each other. In their fury, nuclear fire rained on hundreds of worlds.
Being in a MechWarrior game
as the conflicts continued to rage,
like that?
and as years turned to decades, turned to centuries, mankind found itself slipping into a new dark age.
Again and again,
now,
like
many
almost 4
planets find
times.
themselves living with technology that would be more familiar to their ancestors 1,000 years past, and the rare technological marvels of the Star League that have survived are beyond the understanding of even the learned elite.
Okay, I want to actually go back in a second here. I think this is probably one of the most detailed maps I've ever seen. Yeah, we got the big clusters, but then we got the mini clusters. I'm not sure. Are these some of the subdivisions within the groups themselves? Or are these separate little kingdoms that haven't been united yet? It said it was during one of the 250 into the Succession Wars. So maybe, I don't know. I'll probably find out later. I don't recognize which map this is from. Also, why is there just a straight line going out both ways? I can't, no, there's not names. It's probably just showing where the map lines are. That would do it.
The Inner Sphere is dominated by the 5 successor states, so named for their obsession with re-establishing the old Star League under their own leadership, of course. Each state is ruled by a great house, dynasties stretching back centuries. Surrounding the Inner Sphere is the periphery, home to many more nations, both minor and major. To catalogue them all is a task that grows ever more difficult with each passing year.
And they don't just mean that in game, they mean in actual real life, because there's so much. Like honestly, once you get past the Jihad era, and then you get into the Dark Age, I'm just looking at this going, oh boy. Yeah, this is going to take a while. It's actually very intimidating. Like, you look at BattleTech, you think, okay, there's a lot to learn here. And then you look at what comes later, and it's like, yeah.
Who knows what distant outposts exist out there in the galaxy? Returning to more familiar worlds,
yeah, like, there's
to
no
look at any of the
random
nation states without first looking at our own world would be a crime. Terror exists at the heart of all things.
I love how they're also calling it
has.
terror, just like 40k.
Belonging to no great house and untouched by the Succession Wars, Earth is under the watchful protection of Comstar, Born from
Protection.
the ashes of the
That's
Star
a
League,
word.
Comstar fought to keep interstellar lines of communication open and distant stars connected. Otherwise preoccupied with waging war, the successor states left them to their own devices, all the while making use of their services. Before long, Comstar had established a virtual monopoly on communication, and the neutrality.
Wait, virtual monopoly? I thought it was an explicit, unquestionable monopoly. A virtual monopoly is like we have it, but maybe there's a few other things. I'm assuming he's referencing the virtual part to the fact that people can literally do couriers and word of mouth, but even then, unless there's something I missed, I don't think so. But every now and again, what they do for random things is, yeah, you did the thing, it's cool, we're gonna lie about this so no one can ever find out. Honestly, that's what they did with a lot of the MechWarrior DLCs.
Of both their own organization and Earth was not to be threatened. Around them swelled a maelstrom of carnage, and there is perhaps no house more associated with destruction, more feared for its cruelty, more responsible for the ever-declining state of progress than House Kurita of the Draconis Combine. Ruled in 3025 by coordinator Takeshi Kurita on
I'm sorry, I love how he's just like, flat out, yeah! Wow, sorry. Kurita's the bad guy. I'm just thinking, yeah, they do have the entire we're gonna fuck you up mentality. They are literally the warring state. Granted, everyone else has their own issues too. Everyone else has their own issues. Even the good guys have some not so good guys. Yeah.
Luthien, the highly intelligent and utterly ruthless patriarch of the Kurita dynasty, is head of what is perhaps the most military-minded of all the great nations. The Draconis Combine was born from conquest, and this fact has been a through line throughout its history, with House Kurita repeatedly declaring war on their neighbours during times of peace. At Takeshi's side sits Subhash Indrahar, head of the ISF, this authoritarian intelligence network.
Huh. Honestly, I had never seen that guy's picture before. Granted, I think I've seen the previous one, but this is a new one.
Keeps close watch over all citizens of the Draconis Combine,
oh, yeah,
from the lowly factory worker up to the 5 supremely powerful district warlords, and even Takeshi's son, Theodore Kurita. For the average person living in the Combine, there are few freedoms.
I was like, heard, and I was like trying to say him at the same time. It's like, I don't word well. Yeah, so I love how there's just like the random planets out here that you just don't deal with. Oh, jeez.
Their lives are in service to the warrior elite, and the state monitors all. Across the border, and also on the Corwood side from Terra, is the Lyran Commonwealth. At its head is Archon Katrina Steiner. From her seat on Tharkad, she oversees the most prosperous of all the successor states, a source of great pride to Lyrans everywhere, and a source of much contention to their rimwood neighbours.
I'm just hearing pride, and the entire time I'm just thinking, money. I just had a Mr. Krabs meme come into my head, and I don't feel I should apologize for that because it's perfectly accurate as a meme to generally describe the entire Lyran, Steiner, whatever outlook. Yeah.
Whereas the Draconis Combine was formed by and for aggression, the Commonwealth was formed for defense. When the Principality of Razelhog fell to the Combine, the writing was on the wall for other nearby nations. Unification brought them freedom, and for the citizens of...
I'm sorry. One, I knew Razelhog. Okay, so he says Razelhog, rather than Razelhag or Roshlog, which I still think is a better sounding one, but whatever. Their previous incarnation before they were refounded later on is what prompted this. The Lyran Commonwealth was prompted because of Razelhog. Huh. I mean, I get it. It makes sense. Kind of weird that, just historical issues, and my entire bias is a little more anti-Steiner after playing the Rise of Razelhag in MechWarrior 5 recently. So I'm like, you know what? Yeah, maybe because Kurita was run by Theodore at that time, and honestly, goddamn, if I wasn't certain he died horribly before he can actually accomplish anything, he would have been awesome. And then Steiner looked distinctly German during bad time periods, and were acting as such. So it's just weird that they literally came about because of Razelhog. Can I get used to that? Huh. Interesting how that plays out.
They can enjoy those freedoms like few others in the Inner Sphere. The military meant as though the Lyrans have little to celebrate. A record of embarrassing defeats and blunders has characterized the history of the LCAF. and some foresee its collapse as inevitable.
I mean, it would if they couldn't literally make up for it by throwing money at things. And it literally working. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised they haven't flat out bought other people into their alliance. Like, at what point where they just go up to someone's like, hey, we're going to buy you. Here's how much money you get. You can spend it anywhere. That's us. You're going to be us. Yeah. Actually, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, they probably actually did do that, and that might actually account for some of the worlds in there. I wonder if that's documented.
Doing their best to match the Lyrans, both in trade and in incompetence, is the Free World League, ruled from Atreus by the Marek.
Okay, that is probably the most damning way to describe anything. Trying to match the Lyrans in trade and incompetence. Wow. I mean, I've heard some honestly amazing ways to describe Marek. Basically a more contentious United States. I'm heavily paraphrasing to say that. Honestly, it's probably a more contentious European Union is probably more accurate, but details. And that was mostly in Tech's introduction to the Inner Sphere, which honestly I still think is a great way to get into it. So this one, though, I'm definitely getting the impression that Sven here has significant thoughts about the various factions. And, flat out saying, yeah, Gurita's kind of the assholes. They attack everyone. Marek is incompetent. And also, Steiner's incompetent, but they're rich because money. But he hasn't really brought up the money I have. It's more protection, but also we're not really good commanders, which is a meme. I mean, when they get a good commander, they get a good commander. Everyone else, they get a lot of money thrown at them. Yeah. And I'm sure if that ever was fixed, Comstar would have a word about it, but that's not something we're at yet.
The oldest of the successor states, what was once a bastion of democracy, planetary representation, and individual freedoms, has become a nightmare of bureaucracy and mistrust.
How old is this video? A year ago. Too on the nose? Probably a little too on the nose. Yeah. No comment.
Janos Marek is the current ruling head of the noble house.
He has a
like the
tattoo on his
nation he
forehead, really?
rules, the Captain General is the oldest of the successor lords. The Free Worlds League is stuck in a state of paralysis, unable to move on from the crushing civil war that tore through the nation 10 years prior. Support for Janos Marek is at an all-time low, and the once loved and respected ruler cannot seem to shake the ghost of his traitorous dead brother Anton. In many ways, the League is a microcosm of the Inner Sphere at large, a collection of disunified smaller nations making up something more. Rimward of Earth lies the Capellan Confederation, last to form of all the successor states.
Huh. This is actually probably the first time I've ever heard anyone describe this as Rimward or Coreward. He hasn't said Coreward yet, but if you're saying Rimward, that would make sense. And it does kind of show where they're at, because they always picture this whenever they do the very far zoom outs, rarely, that we're on the southern, or what we would consider the southern end, as associated with how we're just saying things fit. Honestly, I don't know why it's ever pictured that way. I guess we just picture the cores looking up and we just kind of go with it. But yeah, interesting how they're orienting in a 3D way to say core or inward, or rimward, I mean. Just now that I think about it, in the games, I haven't heard that. I mean, maybe it's in the novels and I just missed it because I haven't got into those nearly as much. But at least in the games and much of the people talking about it, that's just not kind of a term that comes up, even though it makes a lot of sense, actually. Huh.
States, the heyday of this once promising nation is very much behind it. It is
They
not
had a
advised
promising
to share this
time?
opinion with Chancellor Maximilian Liao, however. Eaten away by its neighbours, the Chancellor smarts at his loss of territory, and harbours a deep resentment for those across his borders. This is not...
Also, someone told me apparently, and this is kind of hilariously ironic, Lao was formed by democracy advocates who were opposed to the kind of rule that is basically Lao. Yeah. I don't know if that's true, but I think it's so funny. I don't want to look it up and be wrong, because I just want to believe it regardless, because it amuses me.
not stopped him from envisioning a future where he alone sits on the throne in the Star League, and he has every intention of achieving that goal through deceit.
Yeah, I'm sure that'll
should his
go great for
military
him.
or economy fail him. On the surface, citizens of the Capellan Confederation might have greater freedoms than certain others in the Inner Sphere, but in
I mean, technically, they could make that argument over Kurita. Or maybe a general not rich person in Davian. Yeah, I mean, if you're middle to upper, yeah, no, Davian's pretty swell. But if you're not, they can't help you. They would like to. They're just not going to because they're stretched as thin as F.
In reality, job roles are assigned and a state of poverty is so prevalent on many worlds that there are few avenues of escape. The secret police, known as the Maskarovka, operates almost unchecked, helpfully disappearing anyone who steps out of line. Last up of the 5 successor states is the Federated Sons, and its ruler, Prince Hans Davian. Sworn enemy of all 3 of its neighbours, the Federated Sons stands as the...
Wait, 3? Oh, I forgot. Yeah, there's the
totalitarian regimes that rule there. Hans Davian, more than any other ruler in the last few centuries, is fighting to stem the flow of technological decline, and is perhaps the closest of any to actually reuniting the Star League.
Does a good job of getting almost half.
The Federated Sons is the largest of all the successor states, and has the largest military to boot, but it isn't all sunshine and rainbows.
They're very
spread out. This comes
at
an enormous cost to its common citizens. A significant class divide exists, and many worlds are underdeveloped, their inhabitants living a life closer to the 19th century than the 31st. Furthermore, Hans knowingly supports methods such as terrorism to destabilize his counterparts in the Free Worlds League. While this is no worse than most any other...
in the Free Worlds League? I guess they're kind of considering a neighbor, just skipping over Lao entirely. Also, he's actively pro... that kind of sucks. But again, I'm not entirely surprised considering in MechWarrior 5, we actually got into that with... I think it was the... not the Phoenix campaign, but one of the DLCs was basically fighting in the 4th Succession War, and you're just like, yeah, we're going to take Lao's stuff now. I can fully see him going on to less than subtle means, because, fuck you, I'm going to get yours. They're not always the best guys, they're just not the worst.
It certainly clashes with the way Hans likes to portray himself. 3025 is a time both of stagnation and of changes. The third...
Oh, that is just a weird mix-up. Can't even see what's back there. We got a locust, a bunch of VTOLs, which honestly I hate those things with a passion. Some generally good armor. Honestly, I've come around to liking them when you can't just step on them in game. Makes them a lot better. And king crab. That would do a lot of the murder right there. Honestly, them for cover, the locust to just get around, and the king crab to say, if you get too close, I'm gonna dead you. I'm gonna commit dead on you. It's gonna hurt. Not me though. I'm gonna enjoy it.
Succession War has now been raging for over 100 years, but the nature of warfare has taken
which Succession War?
The Third Succession War has now been raging for over 100 years.
Really? This one lasted 100?
Warfare has taken a definite turn.
See, I'm more used to like the 4th Succession War time period where that was a really fast war comparatively, and then it just had other things around it. But then again, that was more stabilized by Comstar. Because it's obligatory. Stabilized. So I guess that makes a little more sense.
From the nuclear apocalypses that characterize the First Succession War.
And the
Nowadays,
second.
what scarce industry and technology that remain on border worlds is too valuable to destroy, meaning war is now waged largely by maneuvering and putting your opponents in an untenable position, forcing them to withdraw or risk losing their precious military assets.
Huh.
While this...
See, now that's something very different. I'm used to the idea of all-out war because Tex does talk at length about why that's the one thing the Inner Sphere has over the clans. The clans are better, but they are fighting limited conflicts, where the Inner Sphere is like, fuck you, and then everything else is on the table. So they're going to go all in. Here it's talking about how they're also getting into limited conflicts of, I'm not going to have to fight you. I'm going to get around so you know you're going to lose, and you're going to make the smart decision and not commit... I was going to say dead, but it's less dead, and you're not going to commit bad financial planning. Which would be a good argument for a lot of people, but we have seen, considering what he literally just said about some of the incompetence, I'm sure they don't always do that. Yeah.
This low-scale conflict continues to smolder across the Inner Sphere. Efforts are underway to recover what was once lost.
So is that the Halo
New universities are springing up, and the state of war now acts as a driving force for technological progress. There are those who...
Oh, now that is different. I mean, I know technically things did progress, but I'm so used to the idea of technological progress being you discovered a cache, and maybe you're in something called the Grey Legion, or the clans drop in, and that is just a massive bump in technology. The thought that it would, okay, let me rephrase that. If it wasn't for the fact that they're kind of rediscovering technological progress as opposed to, hey guys, we got rocks after the first and second succession wars introduced everyone to the idea of you don't got shit anymore because we nuked it. It makes a lot more sense then. Okay.
You see progress differently, however, and within each of the successor states is a faction currently pushing for independence. The Razelhug district of the Draconis Combine has been pushing for their freedom for many years now, as has one of the founding members of the Lyran Commonwealth, the Isle of Skye.
Isle of Skye, really? The Scottish island? I'm pretty sure it's Scottish, yeah. There's someone in there who was like, you know what? I heard there's some kind of disagreement between Scotland and Great Britain. I know. One should be part of the other. But is it really? I don't know. I'm not in Great Britain. I'm not in England. I don't know that shit. But I know there's an issue. That's also the extent of my knowledge.
In the Free Worlds League, the Duchy of Airier has been openly hostile towards House Marek for as long as anyone can remember.
Wait. Are you saying there's people who aren't openly hostile to House Marek? I thought everyone was at each other's throats all the time in here. Huh. They must really be out there for that to be exceptionally noteworthy. And yeah, that is the minor faction within the overall faction. Frankly, I really like this map.
Perhaps most sinister of all is Hans Davian's brother-in-law, Duke Michael Hassick Davian, who desires not to break away the Capellan march he rules, but to supplant his relative at the head of the Federated Sons.
Yeah.
Only the Capellan Confederation...
Wait. That name sounds... Michael... Wait, what was his name?
Michael Hassick Davian.
Why does his name sound really familiar? Maybe it was MechWarrior 5 where we ran into him, but for some reason, he wouldn't be... Nah, he can't possibly be one of the guys. So this is the third succession war. He's going to be dead well before all of the clan stuff hits the fan and all of the surviving bullshit of out-of-universe issues between FASA when they sold and WizKids deciding, hey, let's kill everyone because we want to make our own people we can sell better. Yeah, but I don't know. For some reason, his name sounds familiar.
Who desires not to break away the Capellan march he rules, but to supplant his relative at the head of the Federated Sons. Only the Capellan Confederation does not currently possess a prominent independence movement, unless of course you count the conquered worlds who no longer desire to return to their old system. Outside of the Inner Sphere are four major periphery powers: the mistrusting Taurian Concordat, the hedonistic Magistracy of Canopus, the isolationist Outworlds Alliance.
The Outworlds Alliance, I wish I knew more about, just because I don't know anything about them other than they're a faction and I've heard their name before. That's literally my extent right there.
And the relatively young Oregon Directorate.
Oh, we're actually going to mention them. I was not expecting that. I guess this is why he said 250 in right around the third, because this is when they exist. And I know canonically they were later just swallowed up and that was the end of it, but also, I don't know why, but I always thought the Taurians were bigger. Yeah, I know that should sound weird, but I really did figure they were kind of bigger a group. Also, what's this one over here? What's the small one? I would love to just get more information here. And the Outworlds Alliance is right over here. I wonder why they're only great in here, but everything over here, which is a huge development area, is kind of ignored.
While these nations dominate their own regions of space, compared to even the weakest successor state, they are leagues below. Besides,
does anyone else hear weakest successor state and just go, oh yeah, Lao? Probably just me. Definitely just me.
These four are yet more micronations and bandit kingdoms, both near and far.
Bandit kingdoms.
Each could be the topic of a lengthy video, but are...
Okay, just randomly, does anyone know where Van Zant is? Because I'm just kind of curious.
For now, beneath the scope of this summary. Nobody yet knows it, but the third succession war is racing towards an explosive showdown. On a border world between the Draconis Combine and the Federated Sons, the full might of their respective militaries are about to be brought to bear. Meanwhile, Liao is launching his own Operation Doppelganger in response to the looming threat that is currently hanging over the entire Inner Sphere. 3 years prior, Hans Davian and Katrina Steiner came together to form an alliance which is about to change the face of the Inner Sphere forever. Partnering...
Oh, so when he says that, wait, the third one is still raging at this point. I thought this was already settled. I guess it's more just a slow overarching conflict that it kind of never actually settled type conflict. Okay, that makes more sense. Huh. Because them marrying, I thought, was what kicked around the beginning of the Fourth Succession War. Also, the Regan Reach is still around at this point, because I would have sworn they were already absorbed and destroyed by this point.
The largest military to the most powerful economy is a terrifying prospect for their neighbours with whom they share a rocky history. In response, the remaining three nations have united in their own promising but extremely fragile alliance.
Oh?
The future hangs in the balance, and only time will tell if humanity will recover their former glory or be doomed to technological oblivion.
And that is basically the introduction to how Sven Vanderplank is going to be looking into BattleTech. And he definitely has a different tone. He's very much, this is what's happening. But even though he's keeping it level, I think he actually has a lot more of a distinct colored take on it than even Tex did. Tex is in character. Tex is very much upfront, like, hey, I don't like the Clanners, but they got some good shit. Also, I can't do his accent. I just can't do accents in general, but his specifically, because it would involve actually being able to voice act, which I cannot do. But here, I think Tex actually kept it a lot more even-handed and called himself out when he was not, and then played it up after he called himself out as Leeway to lampshade it. Here, though, Sven is very much, and this could be just me reading into it too much because me, but at least with this brief brush, he's definitely putting a lot more of his personality into it without the lampshading factor, which honestly could make this very interesting because I want to see what his take is, because I've already seen a lot. That said, I'm going to be getting a lot of the stuff because next time around is, what is that one anyways? Oh yeah, a complete 500-year history. Oh, wow, that's the early stuff, isn't it? Damn. So yeah, the next one is going to be a big one, and probably a big one we're going to just take a long time getting through because it goes through everything. But it covers a lot of time periods I don't have reference for. So I'll have to really take my time to figure out, okay, is this Sven being factual, or is this Sven letting his little bits of color enter his phrasing? I don't know why I'm having a weird time saying he just sometimes puts his opinions in there as fact, because honestly, it's a fictitious game with really sparse information about old time periods. It might be no different, and headcanon at some points is adopted by this company. Catalyst has done it, so it's not entirely impossible. And by Catalyst having done it, I'm referring to Tex having his character canonized into BattleTech. So headcanon can occasionally become canon. And that's perfectly cool. So I like this. It's a different puzzle to work with. Where Tex, I'm going to take more as gospel. This, I'm also going to take as gospel because I'm very easily misled. But also because it's going to be a different coloration. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how this goes. Because I love the really deep history of BattleTech. There's so much there. And they put so much thought into it. Even just in passing, there's thoughts and ways to construct narratives, or I can speak to narratives and how things were connected. So it's really cool. Basically what I'm saying is I'm excited. I want to jump right in, and yeah, let's see just where this goes. Otherwise, you guys know the deal. There's a link below to the original video. Hit it up. And if you like this, subscribe. And if for any reason I missed anything, let me know because, yeah, thanks in advance. And I'll see you guys then. Adios.